They could hit raise button and it'll raise these up a little bit, but it will not turn, the daylighting will always keep it at a capped point. Excuse me. I don't think you'll ever have a teacher wanting more light in here because they have
The sun tubes.
They have the sun tubes, which are incredible. I mean, really, on a nice day, you don't even need
They
lights.
are right.
So right now, most of the classrooms normally will be set to scene 1? Is that
Well, when
kind of
you
like the
walk-
normal?
Yeah, when you walk in, it goes to scene 1.
Gotcha.
And scene 1 is just everything at 100% with daylight.
Okay.
Scene 2 is the exact same thing, except everything's at 75%. Now, I will show you guys in the app how to change scene 1 and scene 2.
How to change how it functions, or just how to change between the two?
How it functions, what those buttons actually do.
Okay.
So remember, they're all set for scene 1, scene 2, and off scene.
Right.
So when we go through the app, I'll show you that.
So if a teacher came in here and, the sun tubes are working beautifully, they just have to hit the off button if they want to turn off the lights.
Right.
So these won't go off if you open something.
Correct. They will not.
So
They operate independently.
This one will.
It will dim and go off with the amount of sun, but that's not, you can have, I mean, the sun tubes are pretty close in here, but there's still enough coming through the windows.
Okay.
So it's not directly affected by the sun tube.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to think, when we open up, do we kind of leave stuff on off and see if the sun will give them what they need during the day? Or just,
Maybe we can leave it in default, like we leave it in default lit, and they will come in, most teachers first thing they'll do is
Yeah,
open the blinds.
yeah.
right,
They gonna have plenty of light.
right.
The main thing is you'll explain to teachers what the buttons do, and then they have the freedom to do whatever
Oh,
they want.
yes,
Yes.
yes. Mhm.
So if they're energy conscious, they'll keep the lights off most of the time. So let's go through the app. Maybe if we could crowd in this table, it'd probably be good. The connection point, this works off a wireless connection. If you want to just sit at the table, that's okay. And I'll pass it around. If you have a smartphone.
Is all this being done on there?
Mhm.
All right, do you mind if I come over
Yeah,
here?
you come.
I'm just gonna be over your shoulder, don't worry about it.
I'll pass this around after I explain it. But as like any smartphone, there's going to have a Wi-Fi connection status. So at the top, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little Wi-Fi icon showing you're connected.
Yeah.
At the top. The actual Wi-Fi router is right in that electrical closet right there. So if you go too much farther from there, you're not going to have connection. Okay.
So you have to have connection to this,
Right, to that particular.
so not just a general Wi-Fi, you can't do it that way?
Right, you have to be specifically connected to that. And if you go under settings, the Wi-Fi is called Energy Saver. And that'll help you remember, see the Wi-Fi name there? That'll help you remember the name of your system. And it won't pop up because it's a hidden Wi-Fi. So you go and connect through this thing.
Through what? Through
This-
the app or through this phone right here that you're holding?
This iPod device. And this-
So y'all gonna leave that with us?
That's the school's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's what we can walk around with?
But
Gotcha.
remember, you can only go as far as the
The
router.
router. So
Exp-
each room has, each area zone will have
I'll show you in the app. Give me a second to get
Okay.
there. So the app is called Energy Saver. And actually, you can download this in your phones and play with it if you have an iDevice.
But we can't do nothing with it though, right? Like the way you about to do?
Right, only unless you connect to the router. The router is yours as well, so if you can configure the router, it's yours. So there's the app, Energy Saver. You click on Energy Saver, and it'll just discover devices. And when it's done, a little white thing will pop up that you can select, or this thing, the ESN ETH. You're just going to click on that and click Connect. Yeah, click Connect, and it'll ask you for a password.
Okay.
The password is just Lutron, all lowercase. And
That's
once
no
you,
Lutron?
Lutron. and then it starts to load. It's gonna be loading all your stuff.
And is it loading it off the router like right now?
The router is pulling all the information off of all the devices in the classrooms.
In every classroom?
So it says 25 devices found. If you ever have anything different than 25, then you most likely have less. If you have less, then you're missing something.
Does that mean something's not working correctly?
Okay.
So it means something's not communicating.
Okay.
And at that point, you probably call Lutron. But our tech support can help walk you through this app as well. So the first menu of items is some different screens here. The main ones you're going to be concerned with are system setup and maintenance and diagnostics. System setup is the first item. So I always tell everyone, keep hitting the top item until you get to a screen you recognize. So you hit, you can always hit back. You hit system setup, and then you click configure an ESN. And ESN stands for Energy Saver Node, and that's the system you have. So just keep clicking the top until you see this long list of devices. These are all the devices that are connected to the system. Well, all the ESNs, which are what actually control the lights. They physically switch the lights on and off. So when you push a button in the classroom and the lights go from on to off, you can hear the relays click kind of faintly up in the ceiling. So that's where they're located. But we're in classroom, what is this one? Should be labeled right. I can't see from it. It's right on the wall station. Last three numbers, 138. 138. So you're going to look for ESN room 138. So we scroll down, and let's see, there's ESN 138. And if I'm not sure that I've got the right one, I can click identify at the bottom. And it says all lights will flash. Again, you don't want to do this with students in here. And it'll flash and go, okay, that must be the right ESN because I'm affecting the lights. So I know I got the right one. I'm going to hit this little green arrow to enter, kind of like enter into that ESN. And that will show me what this room is doing. So once it downloads, and it's downloading the presets and the wall station information. It's downloading information about what this classroom does. Okay, once it's done, the only thing you need to really worry about is, well, if you're troubleshooting the light and you've got power to it, or you don't have power to it, it could be the ESN, you hit the wall station, the light still doesn't come on. You could go into here and click verify wiring. And in each classroom you have 3 zones. So your classroom is an area, and in the classroom, in the area, you have 3 zones. The 3 zones are, number 1 is the closest to the window, number 2 is this middle row, and number 3 is all the 2x2s in the back. So when I'm verifying the rows, if I click, you can do a couple different things. You can say go to high end, go to low end, go to off, or identify. So I click identify, and zone 1 flashes. Okay, so that tells me. Now they may be out of order, just depends how the electrician wired it. But then I click 2, let's see what 2 is. Identify, and our LED is flashing. Okay, so that tells me that's 2. And then 3, identify, that's our back one here. So knowing how that's laid out, now we can start to change our scenes. So you're going to go into setup areas, because this is an area, and you see it's labeled room 138. There's some other areas in there, those are just default areas. You don't have to worry about those. Just click room 138, again click the green arrow, and you have a couple of different things. And you have defined zones in this area, that one you don't mess with, don't touch that.
Define them.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Trim settings, you don't have to worry about that here. Scene, set up scenes. Well, that sounds like something that I would need to do if I was setting up the scenes. So remember, those buttons do scene 1, scene 2, and off scene. So if I want to change what scene 1 is, I would probably go into setup scenes. So I click setup scenes, and notice you will see scene off, scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, all the way down. Now you only have access to scenes 1, 2, and off from the wall station, but this area could technically have up to 16 scenes. But
Wow.
here you're not really using it. So let's say I wanted scene 2. I like how scene 1 is, and I like how scene off is, but let me change scene 2. I select scene 2, and I go into it with a little green arrow. I'm pushing it. Yeah. And notice it has my zones there. And they're actually labeled. They're labeled 2x2 fixtures, which are the ones in the back, non-window linears, which are the ones not by the window, and then window linears, those are the ones by the window.
Okay.
So those are your 3 areas you can affect. Now right now everything's set for 14%, and that's probably just whatever the default by the sequence of operations. But if you want to change what that does, you would click whatever zone you want to change. Let's say you wanted it to actually turn the 2x2s off. You can drag and drop the little slider, and it would go off, and it does it in real time, so you can see what it's actually doing.
So one is they on, all the
It's emergency.
Yeah, all the emergency lights here aren't controlled. And then we just click done. And now, it saves it as you do it. You can see there, when I push this button, remember scene 1 is everything 100% with daylight. Scene 2, I just changed, now does these off. Because I just changed it. So that's all you have to do to change that button press. And now, let's say you said, well, I was just playing around, I'm just kidding, I don't want to do that. You just go back in and change it to where it was. It's 14. Again, it does it in real time. Click done. And all the classrooms are kind of copycats of each other. So if you forget what this classroom is supposed to look like, go look at another one and see, okay, scene 2 is all 14. All right, I'll go back in and change that.
So is it safe to say we could be in any classroom and that app would work because we'll be near a router, or is the router only,
The router's only in the one spot.
which is over on this side?
Right.
Got
But
it.
you can affect all the classrooms from here.
So we won't be able to see the other classrooms, what we're doing, because the further we get away, I'm assuming the signal gets weaker.
Right,
Okay. So we may have to do something and go down there and check it.
right.
So that's the only one being left in the building.
Uh-huh.
What room is this router
The electric room, we'll walk back there and I'll show you where it's at.
in? Okay.
The other option is just, if no one's here, like during the summer, drag a long Cat 5 cable all the way out. Have like a 300-foot Cat 5 cable and just drag your router down the hallway.
Yeah.
That's how we do start it.
My next question, does it work with iPad?
Yeah. Yep, any iDevice.
Okay.
So I can actually, I'm not
Any
connected.
iDevice as far as the app, or, but you said that's the only thing we could do changes on, right?
Until you, so this, because this is connected to the router, the router has got some settings on it where it hides itself and it only connects to this. So you'd have to go in and reconfigure the router.
To whatever device.
Right, to whatever device is.
So basically, we're gonna be buying a box to put that in with a charger port? It doesn't walk anywhere?
Well, I think we should try to get one of our iPads that they ordered to be that, so it's bigger, you know.
Yeah, if you need
And
help,
we just dedicate that iPad to,
Okay. I mean, again, we can, as long as we can secure it.
yeah, you're right, and that one would be secured, you
Yeah.
know. in
see, I have the same exact app here. And you can download it and play with it. It does have a demo mode, so you can play with it on demo mode. But it's the exact same thing, it's just twice the size, 3 times the size. So, but notice up here, I don't have any Wi-Fi connection, so nothing's showing up. But it
You have
does-
no Wi-Fi connection to the router.
Right. But it does have a demo mode. And some devices will show up. And you guys have SMTH connect. Again, asks you for a password. What's the password for this?
Lowercase Lutron.
Lutron, lowercase.
Got it. And then again, you hit the top button for each thing until you get to this list of ESNs, and you'll see all your classrooms there. And they're all labeled. This is just the demo mode.
Okay.
Everything you have here is ESN 0 to 10 volt, which means that the way it dims is it has 2 wires for your typical line voltage, which is 120 or 277. That gets switched on and off to turn it on and off. But to dim it, it uses 2 other wires that are low voltage wires. And at 0 volts, it's at low end, and at 10 volts, it's high end. So that's how it dims. When you're troubleshooting one of these lights, keep that in mind. So if you have a light that's turning on and off but not dimming, it's probably something with a 0 to 10 volt.
Okay.
If you have a light that's turning on, that's not turning on and off at all, probably something with the line voltage. Okay. Because it should, even if the 0 to 10 volt's not working, it should at least come on to low end or high end. Troubleshooting as far as the wall stations go, they're pretty durable. The only things I tell people is if you see them, if someone like smashes up against it and it's like scrolling, it might be in programming mode, so you just hold top and bottom buttons to get it out.
Okay.
If it gets physically damaged, then you just have to replace it. There's no real fix for that, but they're pretty durable. The buttons are durable. You shouldn't have to worry about that.
You can take cleaning and wiping down and all that.
Yeah, you can wipe it down. Yeah. Use they're just plastic buttons. Most of the electronics is actually pretty far back into the face plate, so you're not gonna. You spray it with a little stuff and then wipe it off. It's gonna be fine. There is settings for the sensors. They're actually in the sensor itself. If you pop, there's a little cover where that clear plastic piece is. That's actually a cover. You can pop that guy off with a little screwdriver like this. Stick it up and pop it off. And there's a bunch of settings in there. If you take the occupancy sensor off, like unscrew the whole thing and pull it down from the ceiling, you'll see the map of what all the settings do.
Okay.
All the dip switches, the little knobs. So there's little knobs that adjust sensitivity, and there's a black knob that adjusts the timeout.
Okay. Cool.
So everything's been tested in the building, everything's been verified working. But if you have a situation where you have you have kids in here that are very still, sitting still, and the teacher's not moving very much, maybe the lights go off. You could kind of crank up the sensitivity a little bit, or crank up the timeout. And they're just you just use your finger and it's just a small little knob. Other issues, they're all set for 8 minutes, which is the lowest timeout, but let's say you have a room that's staying on too much, maybe the sensitivity is too high. We went around and adjusted the locations, but they are still pretty close to the diffuser. So if they're really high sensitivity, they're going to pick up when that diffuser kicks on.
Okay.
And they'll turn the lights on. So just that may be an issue you run into. Could be. So far everything has been verified working. So 2 parts, you have the hardware, which we covered, and you have the software. The software is all on the iPad or iPhone, iPod, any of the iDevices.
Does that app measure like usage per classroom?
No, it doesn't do any reporting data.
Okay.
All it does is kind of programming and changes. You can do diagnostics, which will show you kind of what's going on, but ordinarily, if you're into that screen, you'll probably be on the phone with tech support and they'll be walking you through some stuff. Again, my name is Jesse. I'm with Lutron, and if you want my information, you have my